She nodded, but there was something off about the way she looked at me. Not guilt exactly, more like calculation. She walked outside. I moved slightly to the side of the window so I wouldn't be obvious. She got into the passenger seat again, but this time the angle was different. I caught a glimpse of the driver, a man, mid-30s maybe, dark hair, clean cut, wearing a button-down shirt. He didn't look like a random rideshare driver. He looked like someone who belonged in her life. They didn't just drive off. He leaned toward her, not enough to be obvious, but enough. That small movement hit me harder than anything else. I felt something drop in my chest, like a weight I didn't know I was carrying suddenly let go and crashed straight down. They drove off, and I stood there, alone in my own house, realizing I might not actually know the person I've been married to for 8 years. I didn't confront her that night. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something told me not to. Not yet. Because I didn't have the full picture. And if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that partial truths can be more dangerous than lies. So I started watching. I started noticing things I hadn't paid attention to before. How she kept her phone face down more often, how she started taking calls in the other room, how she smiled at her screen in a way that didn't include me. Little things, subtle things, but once you see them, you can't unsee them. 3 days later, everything escalated. It was a Saturday. I was home working on fixing a loose cabinet hinge in the kitchen. Claire said she was going out to meet a friend for brunch. Which friend? I asked casually. Emily, she said without hesitation. Emily. I knew Emily, or at least I thought I did. What time? Just a couple hours, nothing crazy. She left around 10. I waited, not long, about 5 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys and followed her. I kept my distance, heart pounding harder with every turn. She didn't go to the part of town where Emily lives. She drove in the opposite direction, downtown. That alone told me everything I needed to know, but I kept going, because at that point I couldn't stop. She pulled into a parking lot near a small cafe, one of those trendy spots with outdoor seating and overpriced coffee. And he was already there. The same black sedan, parked like he owned the place. She got out of her car, and this time I saw everything clearly. The way she smiled when she saw him, the way he stepped forward like he'd been waiting for her. And then he kissed her. Not a quick, awkward kiss, a real one, familiar, comfortable, intimate, like they'd done it 100 times before. I felt something break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a crack spreading through glass. I didn't get out of my car. I didn't confront them. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands started to hurt, watching my wife kiss another man like I didn't exist, like everything we built didn't exist. And then something even worse happened. He walked her to the passenger side of his car. She didn't hesitate. She got in, again, and they drove off. I sat there for a long time after they disappeared, trying to breathe, trying to think, trying to decide what the hell I was supposed to do next. Because at that moment I realized something terrifying. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This was a routine, a pattern, something that had been happening right in front of me while I was living my life like everything was fine. And then, somehow, it got worse. Because the next morning, he pulled into my driveway and waited for my wife like I wasn't even there. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I laid there next to Claire, staring at the ceiling while she breathed steadily beside me like nothing in the world had changed. Like she hadn't spent her afternoon wrapped around another man, like I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. Every sound in the house felt louder. The hum of the fridge, the faint ticking of the clock in the hallway, even her breathing started to get under my skin after a while. I kept replaying the scene in that parking lot over and over again, the way she smiled. That's what stuck with me. Not the kiss, not even the fact that she got into his car like it was the most natural thing in the world. It was that smile. I hadn't seen her smile like that in me in a long time. And that thought, it did something to me I can't really explain. It wasn't just anger, it was something deeper, something colder. By the time the sun started coming up, I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't in denial. I knew exactly what was happening. I just didn't know how far it went. Claire woke up around 7, stretching slightly before rolling out of bed. She didn't notice I'd been awake the entire night. Morning, she mumbled, heading toward the bathroom. Morning, I said, my voice sounding normal somehow. I don't even know how I pulled that off. I heard the shower turn on, and that's when I made a decision. I got out of bed quietly and grabbed her phone from the nightstand. I didn't even hesitate.
If you'd asked me a week ago if I'd ever do something like that, I would have said no without thinking. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. The phone was locked. Of course it was, but I'd seen her unlock it 1,000 times. Muscle memory. Patterns you don't realize you've memorized until you need them. I entered the code. It worked. That alone made my stomach drop. I opened her messages first. Nothing obvious. Conversations with friends, coworkers, group chats. Everything looked clean. Too clean. Then I checked her call history. There were a few numbers that showed up more than others. One of them didn't have a name saved. That one stood out. Multiple calls. Late at night. Early mornings. I clicked it. No contact name. Just a number. I stared at it for a second, then went to her texts again and searched the number. Nothing. She had deleted the messages. That confirmed it. My chest tightened, but I kept going. I checked her photos next. Not the regular gallery, the hidden folder. At first, nothing. Then I noticed something strange. There were gaps in the timeline, missing chunks of days where there should have been photos. Claire takes pictures of everything. Food, random outfits, sunsets, stuff that doesn't even matter. But those days were empty, cleaned out. I locked the phone and put it back exactly where I found it, just as the shower turned off. I got back into bed and closed my eyes. When she came out, I pretended to be half asleep. "Still not feeling great?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I muttered. "Might stay home again." "Okay," she said. "Get some rest." Her voice sounded normal, too normal. She got dressed, did her usual routine. But I noticed it again, the extra effort, the way she picked out her clothes more carefully, the way she checked herself in the mirror one extra time before leaving. She used to do that for me. Now I knew she was doing it for him. I stayed in bed until I heard the front door close. Then I got up immediately and went to the window. And there he was, parked in my driveway. Not across the street, not down the block. In my driveway, like he belonged there, like this was his routine too. I felt my jaw tighten so hard it started to hurt. Claire walked out like she had the day before. No hesitation, no looking around. She opened the passenger door and got in.
And this time, I saw him clearly. No tinted glass blocking my view. He looked calm, comfortable. One hand on the wheel, the other resting casually near the center console. Like he'd done this 100 times. Like picking up my wife from my house was just another part of his morning. He didn't even glance toward the house, not once. It was like I didn't exist. And something about that, something about the audacity of it, flipped a switch in me. They pulled out of the driveway. I stood there for a few seconds, breathing hard, trying to keep it together. Then I grabbed my keys. Again. I followed them. This time, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't panicking. I was focused. They drove the same route as before, toward downtown. But instead of the cafe, they went further, to an apartment complex. Modern, expensive looking, the kind with underground parking and glass balconies. I parked across the street, far enough that I wouldn't be obvious. I watched as his car pulled into the garage entrance. Claire didn't get out before. She stayed inside with him, which meant one thing. She was going up with him. I sat there, staring at the entrance long after they disappeared inside. That cold feeling in my chest spread further. This wasn't just some fling. This wasn't occasional. This had a place, a routine, a location that wasn't random. And suddenly, every late night at work she'd mentioned, every girls' night, every unexplained delay, it all started lining up. I don't know how long I sat there. 10 minutes? Maybe 20. Long enough for reality to settle in fully. Long enough for denial to die completely. Eventually, I started my car and drove home. The house felt different when I walked in. Quieter, heavier. Like everything inside it had shifted without physically moving. I walked through each room slowly. The living room where we watched movies together. The kitchen where we made dinner almost every night. The bedroom where she slept next to me just hours ago. It all felt fake, like a set, like something built to look real, but hollow underneath. I sat down on the couch and stared at nothing for a while. And then I started thinking, not reacting, thinking. Because blowing up right then, confronting her without a plan, that would have been easy, too easy, and it wouldn't have given me answers. I wanted to know everything. How long, who he was, how deep this went. Because the truth is, the betrayal wasn't just the cheating. It was the lie. the daily, consistent lie, and I needed to see the full shape of it. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called in sick for the entire week. I told work I had a personal issue to deal with, which wasn't even a lie. For the next few days, I became someone else, someone quieter, someone more observant. I watched. I tracked patterns, not in some obsessive, chaotic way, but carefully, methodically. Claire left at the same time every morning. He showed up almost every time. Not always in the driveway, sometimes down the street, but he was always there. And every time, she got into his car like it was second nature. They followed similar routines, downtown, the apartment, sometimes different locations, restaurants, bars. I followed them more than once, always at a distance, always careful. And every time I saw them together, it chipped away at something inside me. The way she touched his arm when she laughed, the way he looked at her, like she was his, like she belonged to him. And the worst part, she looked back at him the same way. There was no hesitation, no guilt on her face, no signs that she was torn between two lives. She was fully in it, fully invested, and I was just the background, the stable piece she came home to, the man who paid the mortgage, the man who trusted her. By Thursday, I had enough information, enough confirmation, enough anger building under the surface that it was starting to feel dangerous. But I still didn't confront her, not yet, because something else started forming in my mind, something more controlled, more deliberate. If he was bold enough to sit in my driveway, if he was comfortable enough to wait for her like I didn't exist, then maybe it was time I stopped being invisible. And the opportunity came sooner than I expected. Sunday morning, I heard the car before I even looked. That same engine, that same slow roll into the driveway. I walked to the window. There he was, parked right in front of my house again, waiting. I could see him clearly now, hands on the wheel, relaxed posture, no urgency, no concern, like this was his territory, like he owned the moment. Claire wasn't outside yet, which meant for the first time he was alone, sitting there in my driveway. And something inside me went completely still. All the noise, all the chaos, all the anger, it didn't disappear, it focused. I walked to the front door, my hand rested on the handle for a second, not shaking, not hesitant, just ready. And then I opened it and stepped outside.